Good evening. It's the Borough of Crafton regular meeting, Monday, April 23rd, 2018. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please, beginning with the flag salute by Ms. Perry.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call. Mr. Amendola. Here. Mr. Kraus.
Present.
Ms. Perry.
Here.
Mrs. Glosser.
Here.
Ms. Dammits. Here. Mr. Rosario. Here. Mr. Lavassier.
Here.
Mayor Bloom. Solicitor Report. Here. Engineer Misterman.
Here.
And I'm here.
All right. May I have the approval of the bill list for April 23rd, 2018?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? All right, moving on. May I have the approval of the minutes for April 9th, 2018?
So moved.
Seconded.
Any discussion? All right, all that approved?
Aye.
All that opposed? All right, we have the approval of the minutes. Moving on to citizen comments for all agenda items. All right, is there a list?
No list up there. Somebody got it, or?
I don't think there's anybody.
Do this. Is anybody in the audience? All right, no, nobody wants to come on. All right. Moving on to the acknowledgement of the receipt of written reports, for March 2018. We have the Treasurer's Report, the Financial Report, Act 511, Trash Collection Reports, Property Tax Collection Report, the Police Report, the EMS Report, the Ordnance Officer's Report, Building Inspection Report, Public Works Report, the Library Report, and the Fire Department will be submitting their report for the Fire Chief, and actually the Fire Chief's with us this evening. Thank you so much for attending. The mayor's absent this evening. Is there anything, Mr. Kaczorowski, that you believe the mayor wanted to add to the conversation this evening?
Well, he told me he's going to be at the school function, so he unfortunately cannot be here. He did not give me anything that he had to add to the agenda.
Is that the Taste of Carmel?
I believe it is, yes.
Okay. All right. All right, moving on to the engineer's report. Mr. Mitchell?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just a couple items to go over. First off, bids were open for the 2018 road program, 6 bids. It was a good range of bids. There was a low bidder, Independent Enterprise, with a base bid of $372,000 estimated, and an alternate bid of around $77,000, number one, and alternate number two for around $64,000. So it looks like the preferred combination for bidding, or for the work to be done, is base bid plus alternate number one. So Gateway is preparing a recommendation letter based on awarding of that combination, and recommending award and being specific with the amounts so that the contracts can be executed if the council deems approval.
Thank you.
Next is the Ewing Road evaluation. What's happening there is we met internally last week with looking at some creative ways of finding out how to get Ewing Road open. It looks like the most optimistic or probable scenario is a one-way option. We think we can get the road open at a reasonable cost, and that's still to be determined. So we'll be following up on that when we have some specific information to share. But there is some progress towards opening Ewing Road. Next is the Green Light Gopro grant, which is related to traffic signals that have been submitted. It's a PennDOT grant program. The grant program probably we won't hear anything. Last year was around mid-June, so we expect the same sort of time frame. I don't think the awards come out actually, the money doesn't come out until later in the year, but we should know by mid-June if and what we're awarded for those signals. Next is the splash pool maintenance situation. Essentially, there were some punch list items that have, that's a generous term to be used. Those punch list items have been around for a while. It's taken some arm twisting with the contractor and work specifically from the solicitor to get them to respond and schedule and agree to do the work. So once again, that's we're waiting for weather to break, and that's a common thread through a lot of the work right now, which the weather is breaking. So things should be happening pretty quickly at the pool as far as collecting the punch list items, getting them resolved, and then Gateway will provide some inspection service to make sure that the work that is being done is in accordance with the plans and specifications that are in the contract. And then last update is the Crafton Park Rain Garden. Looks like that work will be finishing in May, and with the good weather that's coming, the planting that needs to be done there is also scheduled to be done at that time frame. So that work should be completed within the next month.
Just touch base on some of these topics that Gateway's been working on. I've been involved, I guess, as manager, public works director. The road program itself, just an explanation. The alternate bid one is Linwood Street from Crafton Boulevard to Coulter. Alternate bid 2, which was Union Avenue, I met with the gas company today. The gas company is going to be doing a new main line on Union Avenue, running from Steuben to Center, so that's going to be placed on the 2019 schedule. The Union Road evaluation, I was out there with the engineers from Gateway, and there's some feasible opportunities, I think. We met with two different engineers. Gaby and Baskets were recommending some of the fault areas, working with the engineer in-house crew. I believe is something that can be handled in-house. Funny thing is, with all the slides, I think there was 80-some slides in Allegheny County, and there was no sign of any faults or movement on Union Road after that harsh winter we had.
It was gonna happen, would be this year, right?
You would think it, but I mean, these are something that I think is cost measures and something to be done effectively with engineering recommendations and maybe some inspections and public works crew working on it. The splash pool, they were down there today. They got the bench wall seat formed. I think they're getting ready to pour that. That was done. We have a number of issues down at the pool, just to give council a heads up. The main valve had to be replaced. It's coming in tomorrow. Main drain valve for the pool. The sump pump, which is actually used on a regular basis in the pool for any type of filtration work, whether for back washes or any type of drainage, that had to be replaced. That's coming in hopefully tomorrow too. I think we ordered about 2 weeks ago. There was 2 other valves that we had to replace. So that filtration system is being piecemeal together this year, and hopefully it holds up with any other issues and problems. That's why if you see the pool was drained, we had to drain it to change those valves and that pump. I just want to make a recommendation to the I know before Phil left, we talked about paving that one section of roadway coming from the parking lot up to the entrance gate. I think the quote from Alberni was like $8,000. We have money in our budget to do it, and I think my recommendation is that we have Grande do that while they're doing a lot.
You want to add that to the contract?
Yeah, we already had a bid for it. There was a quote for it. And I was talking to the council president whether we do it with our contractor or Al Grande. My recommendation also.
2018 road program. What specifically were you speaking of?
It's the access road from the main parking lot to the splash pool.
Back to the pool.
Yeah. Might as well just have it done all at the same time and
Yeah,
be uniform.
get a nice new parking lot.
Yeah.
Bring it, yeah, that makes sense.
So
All right, I'll get a note to the PM to make sure that gets
it's
included.
important to get that done early May because the pool does open.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, good point.
Is the grant paying for the parking lot? Is that what
Yes, that was all part of the grant. This is going to be the additional, the change order would be for the access road going up to the double gate. We'll get our supplies and materials in by the beach, by the splash pad. So that's additionally done.
And then just an additional comment, we mentioned that Mr. Strunk is no longer with us. It's a good thing, right, Mr. Min, for Phil's career, he moved on in his career, and
Yep.
it's not a reflection on Gopro or the Borough of Crafton. If you want to speak to that a little more, and appreciation for him is great in this municipality.
Great, I appreciate that. Yes, he did move on, got out of the consulting world and went into Director of Engineering Services for a private real estate company. So that's where he's serving now. We have access to him. I called him today to talk about a few things, so he's more than willing to make sure that nothing gets lost in the transition in Crafton.
So we wish him well in all of his endeavors, and we know he's a young family and he's looking forward to that work-life balance, and hopefully he can achieve that and spend time with his family. So appreciate everything that you guys did for him and for the municipality, so thank you.
I'll pass that on, thank you.
And in addition, last Thursday night, Brad Kraus and I attended the Connect meeting down at the the Electricians Union Hall banquet facility, and we learned about a 811 program called Coordinate PA, and I'd like the manager and for the gateway engineers to look at how we can facilitate our work using the Coordinate PA. Essentially what it does, it provides us the opportunity to put our road program into their GIS system, and it digitally facilitates some of the coordination efforts that we have via meetings and other email communications. So I don't know if you knew that was on the 811's agenda, but from my understanding, it's a new program, came out at the end of February. Allegheny County and Lehigh are the first ones that are getting to publicly be invited into the program. It's active statewide. I thought it was a wonderful thing. Anything to help us coordinate with the utilities and our municipalities is going to help us. So do you have any questions or any authorizations that you need, or you guys already signed up?
Shaycog initiated this program way back, and we assisted Shaycog in supporting an effort that would allow the municipalities to input their paving programs, and then the utility companies to do the same. So just as the manager had spoke about some synergy between Union and them doing work, us wanting to be paid, and having that splitting of costs. So it helps the utilities, it helps the municipalities, and so OneCall decided to take on the effort to develop an actual program for that. And Shaycog had struggled with a few programs along the way that just didn't work out. They weren't user-friendly, they were too expensive. So now with no cost from OneCall, this is a great program, and we are aware of it. We've commented on it, we beta tested it as well. So yes, there's really not much yet to do. As the municipality or as the utilities populate that software, and you decide, just like you mentioned, Union for 2019, those are the types of things that we input it, and it's very simple. So it can either be done by the manager or by the engineer.
From what I understand, there's a small quiz. So you have to call 811. If we're already signed up, you already probably have a user ID. So you have to take a short quiz on the application, and then you can submit a work order ticket and upload the information. And so I would request that you guys immediately load our
Program.
Our 5-year program. And
Yep. Great. Okay, thanks.
all right, moving on to the Solicitors Report.
Thank you, Mr. President. I have nothing to report this evening other than the fact that council held an executive session prior to the meeting this evening to discuss personnel issues and to obtain the legal advice of the solicitor. That's the end of my report.
All right, thank you. All right, moving on to our business agenda. We have, under calendars and event notifications, a motion to authorize a 1-year contract with Savvy Citizen and Interactive Community Events Calendar and Notification System. This application shall be incorporated to the Borough of Crafton's website and adopted by all commissions, boards, and organizations who are sanctioned by or receive funding from the Borough of Crafton and who hold public meetings. Furthermore, an organization or governmental entity may receive permission to use the application's community calendar an events notification system to inform residents of events happening within the Carlinton Area School District and the Borough of Ingram.
Seconded.
Any discussion?
Yes, I have a question. Is this, what's the overlap of type, how does this play with Nixle?
So Nixle is for emergency communications, so that is what our police and fire are going to use in the event that there's a natural disaster or another serious issue going on in the community. So that's really for the EMS services.
So how does this work essentially? What is the vision for something like this?
So the vision is that if you're on the rec board, you're on the planning commission, you're on, you're part of the library, that you would, Crafton Celebrates, that you'd be able to post your events there. You'd be able to provide public notice, you'd be able to push out notifications and reminders that, hey, we're gonna be meeting at 6:30 or 6:45 tonight, etc.
So, just to interrupt real quick, so in the context of, let's say, like the library board system, that's in the zeitgeist. So if you're on the board now, and we have a system like this, then you get like a text message saying like 6:15 will be on Monday, kind of thing?
Correct. And their events would be public on the omnibus calendar on our website.
Right, so there'd be two tracks, there'd be the public side of things,
Correct.
and then the, side to remind, meeting.
Right, and if you joined that group, you would also get the notification. So if you're a resident in Crafton, you're not gonna get bombarded with every group's activities. You're going to sign yourself up for the activities that matter to you.
I see.
And,
Thank you.
I think there was a point, because you mentioned about sign up. One of the things that we really liked about this system is that you do not have to create an account to purchase.
And Savvy Citizen is a homegrown Allegheny County company. They're gonna help with the advertisement. Right now, we do need to work a little more on our penetration of Nixle. There's about 241 residents that have signed up. That's about the same in Ingram boroughs. So we do need to have a advertising campaign for that, and I'm hoping that using the Savvy Citizen application and the interface through the calendar, that we could actually leverage both and promote both tools. But this is really driven about organizing and event notification and keeping everybody informed. And also it helps with sunshine law and making sure that people have enough time to attend these types of functions.
Question. So in the context here where it states that there would be some crossover with Carlington, in theory this would have allowed maybe Taste of Carlington not to be scheduled, so we missed that?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, and it really is a effort to help coordinate and notify and get everybody on the same page, because we have this community that has no centralized interactive calendar. And from what I found at the Allegheny League of Municipalities meeting, that there are several other municipalities in Allegheny County that have found a great success using this application. Yes, so the cost for the first year, if we sign up for a year, will cost about $1,000. So we get 2 months discount from what I understand from the vendor.
So what is it then, year to year?
We can go year to year. They obviously would be interested in signing a multi-year deal, but
This is only for a 1 year deal.
right, and I don't. There isn't a hard and fast contract at this point with regards to, if we said this evening that we only wanted to sign up for 6 months, then we could draw it back to 6 months. But I would recommend a year, because we'd love to see how we go for a year. I wouldn't extend beyond a year, because if we find that it's not doing a great job, then I would, reevaluate. Right now, the current application that we have for the EMS, Nixle is, I believe, a 4-year deal.
I have another question.
Yes.
How is this implemented across all levels? Is this something that, you know, somebody in the library has to do? Are we gonna do it on
So
our
it-
administrative side?
So there's role-based security. If you're granted a group by the municipality, then you're going to be able to be a group administrator. And so therefore, if it's somebody from, you know, the library or from the president of Crafton Celebrates, they would have permissions to, you know, create events. It's not a free-for-all, so there's role-based security.
Right, my question is this, aside from like, let's say, the Carlington side, which has more administrative capabilities, and maybe some of the other larger entities, like the fire department who could advertise the United Races so we can all see it.
Right.
We're relying on like the volunteer work, so.
Right.
So it's possible that, you know, we'd have to how are we gonna oversight the folks that are volunteers, let's say for Crafton Celebrates, to make sure that they're actually using this thing, to not just, you know, kind of waste the time and money to get something like this? I mean, what was?
So my desire would be that, you know, our administrative staff take the lead on all the commissions and boards, and that, you know, they would be in charge for the first quarter and see how it goes. But if we needed to get into a policy on administration, we could. I mean,
So we would take the lead and just say like, hey, library, you know, we already set up your calendar to show your meetings are every Tuesday. Here it is, essentially.
right.
Okay.
I mean, there can be a lot of hand-holding, or we can trust the people that we've put in those positions and those boards. I mean, I think we have many competent people on those boards, so I would encourage them to, you know, run with it, if I can say that, because, I mean, the issue is, you know, from what I've heard from the discussions, is nobody knows when anything's happening. All right, well, here's a tool that we're gonna provide for you to, you know, advertise your events and comply with the law on advertising your meetings, and and providing you a tool to notify the residents. You know, it's your responsibility to maintain your calendar of events. I mean, I don't imagine that we have our staff being there for the next 12 months, you know, harassing, well, did you post your event, did you post your event? If it's something like, you know, council meetings, all those should be populated and put into the events calendar by our staff. And we can certainly work with our boards and commissions to put their information in there. It's more, in my opinion, we should be inclusive. You know, if the fire department would like to use the application, you know, we can make, you know, the fire chief or, you know, any other member of the fire, you know, of the volunteer fire department and administrator, and have access to a group and add things to the events calendar. So, does that answer your question, Mr. Cowles?
Yes, it does, thank you.
So where's the $1,000 coming from? Is it in the budget? Where are we getting it?
Yes, there are funds.
Yeah, there are funds for developing out our community outreach.
Correct.
Okay.
And as far as this thing, we sign up for a year, and so say we don't want to continue on, we have to give them a certain amount of time, or some notification that, hey, we don't want to continue it on, or can we end it on the last day?
Yes, we can end it on the last day.
So there's no need to give advance notice that we
No.
would end it?
No.
So you read the contract and you know that for a fact?
Yes, I read a rough draft of the
This,
agreement.
from this survey citizens?
Yes.
Okay, is this the same thing that you were talking to DEP about?
No.
You were talking to DEP for the past couple of months or so on
Correct.
changing our,
That's the
Computer
unification,
systems?
that's the unification of our email domains and our email system.
and it's different from this.
Right, this is for public outreach and for event coordination and a public event calendar.
Okay, so the public event calendar right now, as it is, right now as things are, the library calls the borough manager puts it on the website.
Can
Is that
we-
right?
Can we use, excuse me, is it?
So, Mr. Amendola,
As it stands now.
right, as
If
a,
if the fire department wants to do something, they
Right,
call the
the
borough
manager then
manager, and the
directs-
borough manager then puts it on a calendar.
right, the manager then
Or a
directs a
website.
staff member to interface with website.
Okay.
Right, and
And
usually
you want
that,
to change this so that the fire department or the library or whoever else can go onto the site and post it on their own. Is that what you're saying?
right, if they're an authorized user of their group, yes. Right.
Okay. Is this a bid item? Should we put this out for bids? Is this the best price we can get? What's the story there?
We,
This is the first we've heard of this,
right,
and you're asking for a vote to, you're asking for a motion to put this into play here.
correct.
And it's the first we've heard of it.
Well, it's not the first we've heard
It's
of
the
it.
first I've heard of it. I know you guys do stuff behind the scenes,
So,
but
so were you at Alon? Were you there to see how many other vendors were on show at the event?
I was there.
Okay, so.
No, I didn't see this.
Okay,
I missed it.
well, I'm sorry you didn't see it. But
So
there
I
were
should
numerous-
have done my homework in Seven Springs and come back here and
Right, that's
been
why we went.
on the same page with all you other people.
Well,
So I'm not on the same page,
all
so.
right, so you have a vote, and if you would not like to vote for it, then please.
Okay, well, I still have more questions.
All right, yes, sir.
It was not put out to bid?
No, it was not put out to bid.
It doesn't need to be put out to bid?
Mr. Solicitor, does that?
It does not.
It doesn't need to be, but don't you think that it should? Don't you think we should try to get a better price, maybe? Or see if there are any better prices out
For
there?
my professional opinion, this is the market rate, and it's
Your
actually.
professional opinion
Right. Correct.
about this stuff?
Correct, because we actually just went through this process with the Nixle system.
Oh, I
Correct.
see.
Yes,
Can I make a point here?
yes, Mr. Perry.
One of the things when we talk about looking for a competitive bid, the assumption is that there is another program out there that provides the same services. And I am unsure that there is one available to us that hits all of the points of this software. I think one of the biggest things, advantages, besides, being able to provide a more graphically accessible user interface, is the ability to make changes, cancellations, to have the people who are involved in our commissions and our boards being able to get reminders. I mean, it's much, much more full feature than just the little event list that we have on the website right now. And it squarely fits in the communication piece of the comprehensive plan, of making more communication and more accessibility and more transparency.
Okay, so if you're telling me that you're 100% sure that there's no other program out there like this, that there's no other company that provides all of this, then I will certainly support you in getting this thing if you think that we really need it. But if there are other companies out there that do the same thing, I think we ought to know about it. I think we should task our borough manager to find out and see if there are any other companies, because we are protecting the taxpayers' money here.
Yeah,
It's so easy for you guys to just spend money on whatever.
Well, at $1,000, we're talking less than $100 a month. I do run my company on many different platforms, subscription-based platforms for various administrative functions, and I'm not aware of anything that could fit this, or just in this general class, that would be less expensive. And at the end of the day, how much of our manager's time will we eat up researching? Oh, maybe more than what we would spend on this.
All right, so you're about 99.9% sure that this is the only one?
Well, I think it's as good, better. I have not
Okay.
seen, and I
So, all right,
don't think
I'll
that.
support it.
Okay,
Okay.
thanks.
So,
Can I ask another
yeah,
question?
yes,
So,
Mr. Kraus.
I didn't go to Alon, but you said they were at Alon?
Yes,
Okay, so they did some kind of
they
presentation?
were in the vendor showcase.
Okay, so presumably, if there were additional companies that were in that same kind of market, they would have probably been there?
Yes.
Okay.
Is this the first you're hearing about this?
Yes, I wasn't at Alon, so,
So you've not heard about this thing either,
I mean, I
that
saw,
we're making a motion for tonight?
I saw it on the agenda.
When'd you get the agenda today?
Who has the floor, Mr. President?
I do, I think. I'm asking a question.
So,
Did you get the agenda today?
Mr. Kraus has the floor.
Oh, there you go.
I yield the floor.
I didn't even get the notice about the executive session. Maybe we do need this piece of computer thing here to help us communicate.
I agree, it's very cumbersome. and-
Okay, I'll support it.
Thank you, Mr. Amendola. Does anybody else have any questions? All right.
Alice said
I
something.
think,
She
oh, okay.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Motion carries. Thank you for your support.
When is this going into effect?
Tomorrow.
I would say by, after our next meeting, because I would like to get the final draft of the contract reviewed by the solicitor and reviewed by council before we sign off on the contract.
I thought he already reviewed the contract. I thought the
The
solicitor already.
final draft, we have to come up with, are we agreeing to the terms of the 1 year?
So there is no contract drawn up yet.
There's not a final draft of a contract. It's a,
Mr. Corbo hasn't looked at it.
there's
There is none.
not
So we're
a,
voting on something that we don't even have a contract for yet. Jeez.
so
Can I take my vote back?
there's a end user license agreement, EULA. Every piece of software has one. We're agreeing that we are going to agree to sign said EULA for 1 year. That's why I asked for your support. There is a contract, and we're going to have a final review to make sure that it meets, our expectation as council, so that, I'm not running into it, but in order to negotiate the terms, I want to have this council's support.
So
Of
when the
1 year.
final contract is drawn up, you're gonna give it to Mr. Corbo, the solicitor.
Correct, to make
He's
sure
gonna-
that there's nothing slipped in
He's
there.
gonna read it,
Correct.
and then you're gonna come back to us and ask us for another vote to,
No, I'm going.
you're not gonna come back to us.
I'm going to share that contract. If
And we're
there's.
gonna vote on
Do you think we need?
whether we're gonna accept it or reject it.
Mr. Cornwall,
No, the council just voted to approve a one-year contract.
okay. But is it prudent that I'm having
Wow.
you review the final contract?
It is.
Okay, thank you.
So the contract has not been reviewed, and we just voted to accept it.
The-
Is that right? Do I understand that? We do not have a contract drawn up yet with
We
this
don't
company,
have a
and we
one-year
just
contract.
approved- We do not have a
Final
one-year
draft.
contract, but we just
We don't
approved
have.
writing, we just voted
So,
on
I think.
approving a contract that's not been written up yet.
We actually had.
Is that a yes or no? That's a yes or a no. Yes
We
or no?
have a contract, I just explained it to you.
You
and I want-
explain me you do not have a final
I'm not
contract.
signing a final contract
Right.
this evening.
And
Thank
you're
you.
not gonna bring it to us.
I'm going to bring it to
For
the
a-
solicitor to
Yeah.
make sure it passes final review. Right? Because if
Okay.
it didn't,
But
as
you're
your
not
council,
gonna bring it
as your
back to
council
us
president,
and
you
ask
just
us to vote
vested
again.
the authority to sign said contract.
Okay, I got a point of order. I hate to do this, but
Thank you.
this is so off.
Thank you.
The personal attacks.
That'll-
So
Yes.
if we need to go to Robert's rules, Mr. President, and enforce them, or we can have a collegial discussion, but,
I'm trying to have a discussion.
So we just had a discussion on that. We're gonna move on to the personnel motions.
Yeah, here we go, we got more coming.
All right, a motion to approve the hiring of Paige Lieberer and Jess Olkowski as pool managers for the 2018 season.
Second.
I want to ask some questions on that.
Go ahead.
What experience does Paige have? I do not know Paige.
Paige, through the interview process, B, Mary Luxbacher, who was the pool coordinator last year, and questions were given to us by Heather Ravenstall. Marcia Damon sat in on the interviews. Paige actually has probably about 6 years of experience at different levels of the pool. She was a lifeguard. I don't believe she's a head lifeguard, but she's been a lifeguard and attended, like working her way up to the point now where she's applied for a manager / co-manager position. So she has a number of years' experience in the pool in different positions.
Okay, I know who Jess is, because he's been down there. I just cannot place Paige, though. I didn't see any of the, anyone standing out, you know.
Yeah, we had,
Jess, I can say yes.
we had 3 good qualified candidates. Both are in their 3rd year of college. All 3 were in their 3rd year of college. And they're going to share the duties and responsibilities. That pool actually has an opportunity to stay open almost 80 hours a week with the different programming down there, which was probably too much for one of those managers to handle. So after discussion and doing some calculations with the budget, the determination was made to go with 2 co-managers and 2 head lifeguards, all that stays within the budget. That way you'll have managerial staff in 2 capacities down there, all during operations of the pool. So instead of having one person try to manage the years.
Excuse me, please.
Yeah, that was the whole idea, is just that we wanted the management staff to be present all operating hours of the pool. So,
Well, I'm just thinking if she's in her 3rd year of college, a lot of the kids go back by the 3rd week, 2nd week of August.
no, we're good. We're good. We checked, we did all the questions for vacation time and all the applicants for co-managers, or managers and head lifeguards. And we made sure that we could coordinate the pool staying open on Labor Day and covering for all off time, including vacation time.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
All right, may I have a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All that opposed? Motion passes. A motion to approve the hiring of Alexandria, Ruginus as a swim coach for the Crafton Crocodiles 2018 season.
Okay, is she going to be, is Mike Schneiderlocker still continuing on as the head coach?
Hold on, we need to have a
So moved.
second. Okay, now, discussion,
Okay, I'm sorry, excuse me.
that's right.
Is Mike Schneiderlocker continuing on as the head coach?
This came in a recommendation from the Crocodiles, but I do believe I've seen his name listed as the head coach on the employment sheet. So yes.
Okay. All right,
This
but
is-
we're not voting on Mike, I mean, he's just automatically there?
Yeah, this is a new hire. I don't believe she held the position last year. I think this
No.
is a
No,
new
she
hire.
didn't. Okay, all right, thank you. Just
Yes.
my question.
And Rob, this position is half paid by the Crocodiles and half paid by us?
Yes.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Thank you. Motion carries. Motion to approve the internship positions for planning and zoning through the Carnegie Mellon University H. John Hines III College and the U.S. Department of Education.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, what are we doing here? Are you appointing someone?
So is an opportunity to work with CMU on some federal work study students that would have the opportunity to work with us this summer as interns. So this shows that we're approving the ability to work with them. We currently had a position availed through LGA, which we approved. However, the CMU funding is, and the federal funding is much more competitive and favorable to the borough.
So it's in addition to the other intern?
It's it was a joint position initially between.
Ingram and Crafton?
Correct.
Yes. Is that moving forward?
We are most likely going to go through the Carnegie Mellon University instead of through CMU because the funding is more favorable to the
You mean
borough.
LGA?
Instead of,
Yeah, it's-
So we're throwing out the other thing with Ingram, the joint intern?
No, we will still have the opportunity to work with them, but it won't be through LGA. It will be through a,
Didn't you guys do interviews already?
we did do interviews.
For interns?
Correct, yes, I
With-
have.
In a joint thing with Ingram?
Correct.
And that's going out the window now?
No, it's not gonna go, the funding source, being LGA, is being reconsidered, and we're going to be, considering using the Carnegie Mellon University and the US Department of Education, funding setup versus the LGA
You
funding.
can't get both, huh?
It is more favorable to the borough to use the funding from the US Department of Education and CMU.
Instead of the other one.
Correct.
You can't use them both.
No. So it's more favorable for Crafton and Ingram to go through the university.
So Ingram's gonna be involved in that with us also?
So they
This
are,
other CMU thing?
correct. So there's an opportunity if the interns so choose, to come work for us, that that they can work with both municipalities, and I would like to speak with the solicitor on having a memorandum of understanding between both the municipalities, if we're not gonna be doing it through, through LGA, pardon me. Mr. Kraus, did you?
No.
So what you're saying here is that the agreement that we made with Ingram to get an intern from the LGA
Right,
is, we're gonna scrap that,
potentially,
potentially to put this one in place.
correct.
And this one does not include Ingram at the time,
It,
or will include Ingram at the time?
it is up to council if we decide to move forward jointly in sharing the expense for the intern.
Okay.
Okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Mr. Kraus.
just to, because I have the same question, so just to piggyback off that, just so we're clear, so the funding from LGA is just not, has nothing to do with us, right?
No, it just came to light that the students from Carnegie Mellon had a very favorable internship program through CMU.
So, you say, earlier you said that it was more, what was the word you used, more,
Favorable.
yeah, so, what,
Cheaper for us,
okay, all right, just
to put
clarify.
it in
So,
layman's terms.
okay, that's, because favorable, I mean.
Cheaper for us, I understand that.
Yeah. So the other thing with.
Good idea.
So in theory then, this is just gonna, like you said, supplant the work that was already done.
Yes,
And then we're just gonna still reach out to Ingram at a later date and say, hey, we have to read.
Yes.
these people.
so if the CMU interns accept, would like to come with us, then I'm gonna go to the solicitor and work with the Ingram president, and
So
then
it's the same
be able to
process.
come back in May
Okay.
and propose an agreement.
All right, thank you for figuring this out.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed? Motion carries, thank you. A motion to authorize the advertisement for the position of borough manager.
So moved.
second.
Any discussion?
Yes. What, like, how does this, for someone who's not yet had the honor of being part of authorizing any advertisements for things like this, how does that work exactly?
So, actually, I'll let the solicitor run down the process there. He's been through it more than me.
Yeah, I mean, what you'll do is you'll develop an advertisement to send to the papers, or any other area where the council would care to advertise, setting forth the minimum qualifications for the next borough manager. And then resumes will start to come in, and at some point you'll weed through the resumes, have interviews, and hopefully select a new borough manager.
So when you say weed through the resumes, are we just going to, have like 100 people come in and we talk to 100, or how do we?
Totally up to council.
Okay. So and presumably later on during this process, not this meeting, but the next or two, we'll talk about how we'd like to figure that out then.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you guys can set up that process however you like.
I have an application actually, that from the previous time it was, or I'm sorry, an advertisement from the last time it was posted.
Since the application.
No,
Yeah, we could work off of that. If it's sufficient, we'll run it
I
again.
think it was 2 years ago, so I mean, actually it's not.
Should be pretty good.
It's
We could
pretty
also, outsource, this entire process.
You could.
Well, what would that entail?
That would entail working, correct,
Besides money?
yes.
But I mean, would that be like hiring like the equivalent of a search firm to go out and find us
Yeah.
5 people and bring them back?
Right.
So what would be the difference of just, I mean, when you say advertise, it's such a general concept that I'm.
Advertising, Post Gazette,
There's other entities. Most
LGA.
Right, so
University
we can
Pittsburgh,
advertise whatever we
CMU.
want.
There's a job junction. There's a lot of managers and people that are in government that go to certain locations to look for positions.
Right.
Whether it be a public works director, municipal manager, ordinance officer, there's certain advertisement locations that are critical for you to do this.
So in this motion where we say advertisement, do we need to specify those or are those implied?
Advertisements, I think it opens it up anywhere that the borough feels that they get the best candidates.
Okay, excellent. So in other words, that would completely make a search firm almost superfluous.
I don't think you need a search firm. You'll get enough qualified candidates with experience.
Okay, thank you.
You'll pick through the top 10 if you want, and then go from there.
Okay. Any other questions?
Do we have to state anything though, because like in the termination stuff that we mentioned, borough manager / secretary, do we have to state that with this motion or anything like that, or on the actual advertisement of it?
You do not. When the appointment comes, you will appoint an individual, the borough manager and borough secretary. But you have to advertise for secretary. That's all it says.
All right. For all those in favor?
Aye.
For all those opposed? All right, motion carries, thank you. There's a last minute addition to personnel, a motion to advertise, to authorize the advertisement for the position of Public Works. And Public Works employees, or any additional wording you want for that position?
Well, Public Works, I don't know if labor be Public Works,
Labor?
staff member,
Employee.
Public Works employee.
Okay.
We'll
Okay.
stick with employee.
Okay.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Offer public comment.
Oh, yeah, and anybody from the public? Any comment from the public? All right. For all those in favor? Oh, go.
I have one.
Yes.
You want me to stand or?
Please come up forward and your name, address, please.
My name's Matt Greiner, 91 North Emily Street, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I love the idea of getting with it as far as the technological aspects of things and reaching out to the calendar that you were speaking of. I think it would also be nice if.
Hold on.
These are public comments with respect to the motion.
Oh, sorry,
Yeah, okay.
sorry. I thought we were at the end. I thought we were at the end. I apologize.
All right, thank you for your
Got 2 more pages?
enthusiasm. All right, as I hear no comments from the public or from council, may I have a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
All that oppose? Motion carries. Alright, moving on to planning and zoning. A motion to approve resolution number 2018-04, resolving that the borough will consider at a future meeting an amendment to chapter 225 of the Crafton Borough Code of Ordinances zoning as amended to eliminate certain commercial uses which are permitted elsewhere in the borough in the R1 and R2 zoning districts, and to authorize the borough solicitor to advertise the same.
So moved.
Seconded.
Wait.
Any discussion?
Yeah, this is something that's just come out of nowhere again, and I don't have enough information about it to have a vote. You're talking about rezoning and in future meetings, changing ordinances and all that. And the first I heard of it was tonight, when I came to the executive session, so I don't have enough information, and I'd like to let some people, some members of the community, look this over and get some input from them.
Very good. Thank you.
Perhaps it should be advertised, so that, you know, people of the community could give us some input on this. Because, you know, there are people that are, you know, that live in these R1, R2 zoning districts, and
I agree.
I'm sure they want to have some input.
Yes, thank
And
you.
that is the motion, right, to advertise?
Yes, so let me just explain the process. Mr. Amendola raised the issue of public input, and basically, all this resolution does is put a stay on any uses that have been cited in there. Any commercial uses cannot go into the R1 or R2 in this interim period. It's almost like a court stay. So what will happen is, the planning commission will consider this at its May meeting, and then it will be sent to the county once the planning commission is satisfied or makes recommendations to council. There'll be opportunity for the public to attend the planning commission meeting to offer input at future council meetings. I have this set that council will not consider this for a formal public vote until August 13th, 2018 or later. So there's several months for public input, Mr. Amendola.
But okay, let me see if I understand this, that by approving this motion tonight, we are gonna stop any actions by any resident or contractor until this issue is resolved. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, so, yes, that's correct, that this is removing Ms. Perry, do you
It's
have?
a stay. You said it was called a stay.
But I think Mr. Amendola specifically said to stay any construction.
No, that's not
That's not
true.
what we're talking about.
All it is.
Anything that's in process right now.
These are uses. So for example, under the current zoning ordinance, you can put an automotive service center in an R1 district or the R2 district in the borough. So if you live in the R2, somebody could tear the house down next door to your house and put an automotive service center. And what this ordinance, or what this resolution does, is say to somebody, if that's what your plan is, you cannot move forward at this point in time, right? That you cannot go for an automotive service center use in an R2 district in the borough until this whole process works its way out through the planning commission, back through council, downtown to the Allegheny County Department of Economic Development, and eventually back here for a vote as no earlier than August 13th. So it's not a stay on any and all construction. All residential uses would still be permitted, but commercial uses that are permitted elsewhere in the borough would be stayed at this point, if council votes yes tonight.
Does this have anything to do with the athletic field? Nothing to do with the athletic field? What's that zone down there? Would things change?
That's,
The athletic field if we,
that's technically, that is R2. However, it's.
so that would be
it's
affected by
immediate-
this?
It's immediately adjacent to to the Steubenville overlay and to commercial. So if there's any need for the municipality to consider extending commercial use in those zones, we could easily extend the Steubenville overlay or the commercial district because it's immediately adjacent, so it wouldn't be considered spot zoning. If there's any type of development needed on those parcels.
But it does come under this, it's an R2.
It's only prospective. Any current commercial use that's occurring in the residential districts will be permitted to continue. This will have no impact on that. It's just future use changes.
And may I?
Yes.
So this was recommended in the Crafton Inglewood Drive plan, correct?
That we
Most
do a,
specifically,
well, hold on, Mr. Kraus, to address your question, yes, it was suggested that we revamp our zoning, and it's due, so, yes.
So this is something that we've had some
Yes.
input on at some
Yes.
stages already insofar
Yes, and this
that,
feedback came directly from those planning sessions.
but in the sense that, you know, we're trying to redefine, you know, like, for example, if you know, he's talking about the ball fields or whatever, so there, you know, there's houses and stuff over there currently as they stand, so, you know, we have to maintain that balance in where people are living and where people are working.
Correct.
Okay, so this would be a question, well, I guess they answered my question.
Okay, Ms. Perry?
Point of order, the zoning, redoing the entire zoning and reevaluating is a specific recommendation from your management recommendations, as opposed to, there's more general statement about it in the comprehensive plan. There's specific high-level recommendation that the borough undertake a complete revamp of zoning. And I think that this looks like it is kind of a stopgap, a place to start.
It's a Kickstarter to the entire
Exactly.
initiative.
Okay, excellent, thank you.
Just does it be advertised, right?
So-
Yes.
Yes, so what will happen is tomorrow I would transmit an advertisement to the Post-Gazette if council would pass this resolution that indicates that the resolution was passed, and that there will be a vote at a council meeting on August 13th or later. And that meets the requirements of what's called the pending ordinance doctrine in Pennsylvania. And then the ball comes back to council and the planning commission to take it and run with it.
All right, I'd like to move on with a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All that opposed?
No.
Please note for the record. Thank you. Motion passes, thank you. All right, moving on to tax collection. A motion to authorize the Turnkey Taxes LLC professional services agreement as provided to the Borough of Crafton and reviewed by the solicitor, thereby entering the Borough of Crafton into a contract whereby Turnkey Taxes LLC will be permitted to work on behalf of the Borough of Crafton in enhancing the borough's tax collection efforts.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion?
Are they going to will they be working, or Mark Schuster's company, will it be working directly with Jordan?
I believe, yes, it would be working directly, and I understand that they're actually, Ms. Perry,
There's some
They're actually
discussions.
what? I'm sorry.
There's some discussions about new ways to coordinate and interact with Jordan.
yeah, so it will be a collaboration.
Well,
Yeah,
I'd
Mr.
like to
Strauss.
help clarify
Yeah.
the question. So in the interim, they're working with Jordan until they find new ways to work.
Right, in order for Turnkey Taxes to do their job, they have to communicate with Jordan.
Right,
Right,
okay.
and they're gonna be bringing in the other data sets to help facilitate what we know and don't know. Thank you.
We're already paying Jordan, why can't Jordan get
Yeah.
this done?
Because they don't have those resources and those skills. I mean, it just comes down to, it's outside of their scope and their expertise, and they use these different data sources, as Mr. Schuster explained in his Turnkey Taxes presentation.
So do we need someone different so that next year we can just use one company, or how's that work?
So, from what I understand, Jordan has a special role with regards to collection on at least the Carlton School District taxes. I mean, we could always, I believe, and I don't know the answer right now, but I believe we could look for alternative tax collectors. Mr.
Yes, there are plenty of service providers that will collect your taxes and or delinquent taxes.
And how long will we be in contract with Turnkey?
Yeah, I have to,
6 months,
yes.
$300 a month.
Yes, thank you.
And they can do nothing more than Jordan can do. Jordan can do everything that he can do. And it's my understanding from our presentation here 2 weeks ago, that Mr. Schuster, who's a good friend of mine for many years, good friend, but it's my understanding that he's gonna provide us with a software. and that our administration, and I think he worded it, if we find someone in the borough office that cares, is gonna do the work. Is that what you understand?
I understood that he would, for the.
So he's renting us a software for 6 months under contract.
From what I understand.
But we do the
in
work.
this period, he was actually going to be facilitating the tax collection and the search, because it's more than what Jordan does. For the record, the vendor, Turnkey Taxes, uses different data sources
Yes.
and uses that data to identify folks who may, either be delinquent or they simply don't know that they owe the municipality the tax. So, using, utilities, other statewide data sets to help facilitate that, which is outside of the work that the Jordan Tax Service provides.
Fred, I think,
Okay, well, I've been given some other information.
Fred, I think what I got out of that, he's gonna create a database. That database will help the borough, in my role as a code enforcement officer, and I'm sure that the previous code enforcement had the same problem with rental units. It's hard to determine what actually is a rental unit, and I believe he already started a database on a previous experience with the borough that would enable the code enforcement officers to follow up on all the rental properties. Right now, it's a search and a seek and search to find the rental properties. We don't have a list of it. This is something that will help the code enforcement officer and the borough collect taxes off of landlords and tenants. Those tenants that take previous jobs at different locations, might not be collecting their earned income tax. They might be going to somewhere else when they should be going to Crafton. So the biggest thing I seen out of that was actually getting a list of rental properties that you can actually have the ability to use code enforcement, to go in and make sure rental inspection done on a regular basis, and the tenant list is updated.
Yeah.
Right now, it's a crapshoot. You're lucky if you find it, and you're lucky if you can actually research it and get that list. So I think that's probably one of the critical areas that he does. I think it really enables the borough to do a more thorough job when it comes to rental properties.
Can I make a point?
Yes.
Um,
I was just reviewing the duties again, because he actually is going to be providing more than software.
Well, the point that I was going to make to Mr. Amendola's point of $300 per month, there is a stipulation in the contract that says the cost will be deferred until revenue is collected and deposited to cover the subscription fee. So basically, this service is being offered to us on a try-it-you-like-it basis, and we will not owe anything if he does not exceed the collection of the cost of the subscription. There's also in our packets a testimonial page from several of our neighbors who have indicated that this company has indeed collected significant revenues over and above what Jordan Tax is able to do passively. And then you want to go on? You were going to mention.
I was going to say, it's become abundantly clear through my participation in the COG, Charlotte West COG, that the municipalities really have to take an aggressive stance on making sure that new or existing residents and businesses understand that they have a tax liability in the municipality. And this is the most expedient and succinct way of ensuring that we pursue this, because if we allow to continue to go on its current projection, we're missing the revenue dollars that we need to fund our initiatives. Any other comments from?
Are we all aware that Turnkey was here a couple of years ago and it didn't work out? Are you all aware of that?
No.
You're not aware of that?
I'm aware that they were here.
Are you aware that they were here, they were
Yes.
contracted, and it didn't work out? You are aware of it?
I am aware that they were here.
Is anyone else aware of that?
I was aware, and this is what I'm aware of, I was aware that they were actually unable to receive the cooperation they needed from the administration to facilitate their work. right? This staff and this interim manager appear to be willing to cooperate with the vendor.
So you're saying that the prior administration and prior manager didn't cooperate with his efforts? Is that what you're saying?
That's what I can conclude. I was not here for that, but that's what I gathered from the hearsay and from.
Hearsay?
Correct. I was
Okay.
not there, so it would have to be hearsay.
Yeah, so you heard one side of the story, right?
And Mr. Amendola, because we don't have policies and procedures to document and archive these types of activities.
There is a file.
Okay,
Including,
Ms.
another
Perry.
point, including a letter that was drafted by our former solicitor and sent by our former borough manager without bringing the attention to council, essentially kicking him out. And the issue was never brought to council when there was a repeated effort to re-engage, and that is totally unacceptable.
I disagree with that. It was brought to council. We told you what the problems were. You weren't here.
I was here when that letter was.
Point of order.
Yes.
So,
Point of order.
thank you for the collegial discussion on the subject. So I'm gonna wait until Mr. Amendola comes back in the room so we can have a vote.
I know, but no, it's the letter was written to, yes, it was a principal himself. Yes.
Sorry.
Alright. I'd like to proceed with a vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All that opposed?
No.
Please document by a vote. Motion passes, thank you. Under discussion items, administration, would you like to proceed, Mr. Pazarowski?
So far in administration, the key fob system, it's 99% up and running. I have to meet with the vendor with the key fob system and our vector security to make sure that everything works in case of a fire. Right now, the fire would hit the borough building or the structure with the key fob system is the doors automatically open. So if fire alarm goes on, it's all done electric, the doors automatically open. I just have to coordinate with the vector security system and make sure that we're online and they understand how the system's gonna work. So the key fob system is in place. I just need a list from council who will have access to the key fobs. Obviously, all the public works employees will need a fob, so there'll be 6 full-time workers and myself, there'll be 7 public works key fobs. And I need some guidance from council who exactly will get the fobs to enter the sectors.
So my recommendation, of course, the fire chief and fire
If you
marshal.
want, I'll just forward it to North Coast Rock and we'll talk about it as minutes we need.
All right,
If I recall, one of the main reasons and issues will be for the various meetings that happen, and so Crafton celebrates, planning commission, zoning, so maybe chair to each of those. And do I recall also that the software allows access, on the day of, where we can really pinpoint it, and then also for rental, particularly for rental of the community room, so that.
Definitely have one in the office for rentals and for first week. But the key fob system itself is enough, you can get enough data out of it to give you the minute, the time, the day.
Right, but you can
the
actually
number.
set access
Yes,
ability
yes,
to like days of
yes.
working,
You
that sort of thing.
can set it to days, hours, whatever schedule you want, we want to set it for.
Okay.
would you say that this project is coming on budget, on time?
Well, I don't think there was a time frame set, but
Yeah.
yes, definitely.
But I mean, the vendor's working with us, it's not being,
No, the vendor's waiting for me now to come back with the fob system and we're going to move it to the security.
all right. And Total investment is about $6K, and so we should come in around that. Mr. Amendola, do you have any questions?
No, it sounds like progress.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Now, the Historical Society, how will they use it?
We don't have a historical society anymore.
Okay, that's, because there was someone in there Saturday.
That's library. That room is, and the archives are library property essentially. So if there's someone in there, one would hope that it's either, someone that the library has given access to, or someone who works at the library, or who might be, part of the, any emerging archive committee. That's also where the library board has been meeting, and my executive sessions for the library board have been taking place.
Why do we not hold the library anymore, the meetings?
Because of the timing, I believe. I'm not on the board anymore,
But
but yeah, part of it is the,
We're gonna be
the
doing,
open hours.
we're gonna be doing a report from, the library
Representatives.
representatives here soon, I believe.
Right. I spoke with them at the last library board meeting.
Okay. So the other question for you, I'm curious, what do we do about the key system that's there? Are those keys still have the ability to open the doors?
Right now, they do until the fobs are assigned. Once the fobs are assigned, the doors will be locked.
Okay, so the existing lock sets will be changed, like the manual keys will go away?
Yes.
Okay, so do we need to send out an email to you all to have the key, to give us back the key, or it doesn't?
I'm gonna recommend we maybe change the hardware in the key set for the main door upstairs. The main door, the two key.
Sounds like that should be part of this project.
Right. Well, it wasn't included in the initial bid, but I'm gonna make a recommendation, and the cost will be minimal. We change the lock system. There'll be an emergency system if something happens with the power, you do have access to it with a key.
But it would be with new keys.
With new keys. I'm gonna have the locks changed, because there's too many keys floating around for the double doors on the transfers and the community center.
Mr. Amendola, are you okay with that recommendation?
Yeah, that was my suggestion.
So the only way you'll do it.
Months ago.
New key, with the new key, so that we change the locks in the fob system.
Okay.
And the only ones that have new keys, it will be, again, council's recommendation, that we want to do our key.
All right. I'm gonna move on. Commercial fire code and safety inspections. We have the fire chief and the fire marshal here. I'm gonna read a proposed ordinance. It's in rough form right now, and we're gonna have a discussion. That's the point of this. It's to require on an annual basis that all structures that meet the standards established by the Fire and Panic Act of 1927, PL 465, shall be subject to an inspection by the fire marshal to ensure that all applicable ordinances and codes as adopted by the Borough of Crafton are adhered to and observed in order to protect human health and safety. Inspections shall commence September 1st, 2018, and will be coordinated and scheduled by the fire marshal. Inspections shall be paid by the owner of record or owner's designated representative. Annual inspections shall not be scheduled within 180 days of one another. Deficiencies discovered by the fire marshal shall be documented in writing and reported to the party and involved parties to ensure that the owner remedies deficiencies within 45 days. The fire marshal is therefore required to communicate in writing and document deficiencies to the Borough of Crafton's building inspector, code enforcement officer, borough manager, and further required to communicate deficiencies and reports to the Borough of Crafton's database of records. So that's a rough wording, and we can have a discussion. And I'd like to give Mr. Mike Crown and Mr. David Morgan the floor to talk more about where we are with our fire code and safety inspections, and sort of illuminate council. So.
We are nowhere on any of those, because I think we brought it to the council probably back in 2007.
Could you
And every year since, I think I'm
Yeah.
out now. So we brought it to the council every year since, and there's no action on it. But this basically says that under the NFPA and International Code that we should, or Uniform Construction Code, excuse me, that we should be doing those inspections once, if it should be twice a year. We do not do those because of manpower, and the existing ordinance doesn't give us the rights to do those inspections. We have done spot inspections on certain properties, but there's nothing really holding them in without, because right now it goes through the building inspector's office. So, or the fire marshal is working under the building inspector. So some of that has to be changed to allow him more authority to go in and do the inspections, write the reports. If need be, there is a ordinance on the books for fines for in violation of the ordinance, but there is no ordinance giving us the right to do those inspections. So that's what we're asking. Also, the second part of that, which I'd like to see, if you can include it in the same motion, is any commercial building should also have, any commercial building should have a Knox box system, which means that if there is a fire alarm or some activity in the building, instead of us waiting for a key holder, which could be hours sometimes, that it gives us the ability to access a Knox box, which is a secured box, get us the key to make entry into the property to make sure there's no fire or any other activities within the building. And then on the way out, our system's audited, so if an owner would come back and say, here's when we entered, here's when we put the key back, and those types of things.
Okay.
So that should be a good second follow-up, because that's the other thing, we have fire alarms that go off in the middle of the night, the key holder responding, no, they're not going to respond. So then we're sitting there, we have to wait for a certain amount of period, make sure there's nothing showing, nothing's going to be evident before we either clear or make some entry. So this saves the owner or the property owner's money and saves our volunteers their time.
So with regards to how do you pay for said inspections, we have a wage scale that has been adopted, right?
Yeah, we do, there is a scale, but typically, I believe we even brought the Scott Township ordinance, I think it was, and we've displayed it many times. Mount Lebanon ordinance does have a fee structure in there. Typically, of course, you cannot have a windfall from these types of inspections, so it just has to cover the cost of the inspections. So, that's what we're looking to just cover. We just, every time we have a call in a commercial structure, there are violations everywhere. So we just have to start getting up on that. The other thing it does help within the municipalities, we go through the ISO ratings and those types of things. Since we do not have ISO ratings, or we do have the ISO ratings in the fire department, we cannot gain the most points to put us in a different level, which would help the taxpayers when they pay for fire insurance. Because your ISO rating's tied into the premiums, they look at the ISO rating, for every one you drop, if the premiums drop, those types of things. And we don't have any of that structure currently in the borough. It also helps the borough when the ISO comes in and looks at the ISO and insurance ratings, that we are doing those types of things.
Would you and Mr. Morgan be willing to work with myself and the solicitor on crafting a final ordinance to make sure that we're achieving the ends that you seek?
Yeah, I think that would be good. And we would hope that we can expand the fire marshal program to include more than just the fire, have him be able to deputize some other firemen, because again, we are volunteers, where we would seek funds out of the fire marshal's budget just to cover those costs and the time that they're doing these inspections, so we can have multiple. So if Dave can't do it on a Wednesday, Tom Smith can do it on Wednesday, so he's certified and they can do it.
Are you comfortable with moving to at least once a year at this point?
Yes, yeah, absolutely comfortable with once a year. Now, the thing that the borough should understand is in terms of expenses. The first year, you're going to see an increase in that expense account, because it's not like they're going to go in for, it's going to be a very, very comprehensive inspection the first time. So everything's documented, pictures are taken, so we know what exists in that property. Then the re-inspections, years later, it's not going to have to be as comprehensive, because we've already have all the data inputted into the database.
Yeah.
So it's not gonna have to be as comprehensive. And that leads, is the borough, I know we talked at one point about the occupancy inspection. Is that also something that's going to be moved to the fire marshal, or is that going to stay within that?
I think we can have more discussion on that. It's really, you know.
We will gain any access we can gain in those commercial properties.
Yeah.
The better for the fire department, for the health, safety, and welfare of the members.
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it. I think it makes sense that our fire department becomes familiar with the structures, because as we saw in Carnegie, minutes really count, seconds count, and they took a big loss next door, and our neighbors over in McKees Rocks had a loss as well, and over in McKees Rocks, that property didn't even have insurance, and because they were delayed in getting there and they didn't have a really all the tools available to them, now the municipality is on the hook to tear down that building, and it's a loss. And even when we have good technology in place, like we saw at Foster Plaza, you have to be on your A game when these issues come up. And you know, the Foster Plaza incident, it could have been much worse. So my hat's off to all of you. I believe you were one of the first folks that showed up. So, Mr. Morgan, do you have anything to add to this?
No, the only thing is, like, we will go over it. There's some things I'd like to add in there. Chief and I did talk about adding people, not only both apartment building, 3 or more. Everybody has 3 or more units. Be that a year.
Yeah, this is really rough, just trying to capture the spirit of what.
It's the multi-unit apartment buildings which leads to the damages, the Crafton Plaza, the Crafton Towers. Those instances, we've had multiple fires in those properties, not the plaza, but the towers. Now you're putting roughly 106 elderly residents into hallways, smoke environments. So without good pre-planning, game planning, and without getting into those apartments and understanding and fire inspections, the day that call came in, actually, the fire alarm system wasn't working. So, you know, that's something that we need to better familiarize ourselves with for the general public.
Yeah, and from my I see that we are living in it's a aging community. I mean, this community's been here since the turn of the 19th century, so it's important, especially in these older commercial buildings, that we act vigilantly as much as possible and be proactive, because a blighted commercial property can really bring down the value of the community. Health and safety is an issue. So I think as much as practical, we need to be proactive. And it's just been very apparent in the past 6 months that we need to do that with our neighboring communities, seeing the devastation and with their commercial buildings. Any other?
So what exactly is the process?
The process is that we're going to have a dialogue between the fire chief, the fire marshal, and the solicitor, and they're going to craft language that we will then discuss, debate, and then agree to advertise an ordinance to facilitate this.
Okay, and how fast could this be moved through its process?
It depends on council. I believe here it says commence on September 1st. If it commences, doesn't mean it has to start on September 1st. We will do some retraining. There's an opportunity in Cranberry the last week of May. We would like to send 4 of our members to get certified in the FPA Code of Fire Inspections. So they would become Pro Board certified, which is the highest level of certification for a fireman in the inspection process, fire inspection process.
So then, if I understand what you're saying, Mr. Crown, is your teams would move in parallel to the legal process.
Correct.
And
That's correct.
I'm also asking, how long or how fast we can get through the legal process of getting this to be an ordinance. So will we be able to do it so that we can start in September?
And the good thing is, there are example ordinances, so we don't have to recreate the wheel. What I wrote here was just to capture the spirit of the conversations.
And we would, we already have people certified in the fire inspection, but it would make me more comfortable to get about a half dozen of the members certified so that that could be the core group doing the inspections and being certified to do the inspections. So, there's no question on the certification or the level of expertise of those members.
What's the cost of the certification?
I believe it's relatively inexpensive. I would have to get I think it might be 300 for the week. It's a 40-hour course, and it's only offered during the day. So, I would talk to the council about possibly paying out of the stipend for the fire marshal for the people going and having to take off work to take those classes. It's only offered twice a year, once up in the east, once down this way in the west, and Cranberry has it this year in May.
Awesome. Well, I think anything we can do to be proactive here will help the community. It's a small investment on our part. So with that, I don't believe we need a motion. So I just wanted to have a lively discussion on it. So I really appreciate the both of you coming this evening, and I encourage you to visit at least once a quarter. Yeah. All right, moving on with the agenda. Community announcements. Let Mr. Kazarowski read a few of these here.
Just to give everybody a heads up, I know you've probably seen work to begin April 23rd. I know there's one on Ridnour Street. My mom's still up on Lawson, asked me what the borough was doing on Ridnour. Anyhow, that's the state getting ready to pave Crafton Boulevard, Douglastown Road. They're gonna start in the west end, work their way up Crafton Boulevard, down to Dinsmore to Noble. So that's all gonna be resurfaced by the state. Jordan's Tax Service will be in the Community Center on April 26th, 1 to 4, and April 30th, 9. And the cleanup day, Saturday, is April 28th, 2018. That'll go from 9 to noon. Just a reminder, items not collected, which are the most important things, tires with the rims or rims, any type of auto parts, refrigerators or AC units, anything with Freon, paint, electrical waste, TVs, computers, etc. We do have the special collection authored by our waste management company. If you need any information, we have it in the office, or if you believe you got it, it's on the website. Shade Tree Commission is doing the cleaning and cleanup on the 28th in conjunction with the borough cleanup. They'll go 8 to noon, and there'll be an Arbor Day celebration with the shade tree. With the tree dedication in the park. Cleanup is in various locations in the park and near the roadway near the park. Planning Commission letters of interest are still being accepted for any resident interested in serving as a member of the Crafton Planning Commission. We're asking to have them in by April 30th, 2018. Poll passes. That would begin accepting the process for poll passes in the Borough Administrative Office. That'll be Monday through Friday, 9 to 4. We have some more information to follow, possible a Saturday schedule, and we're looking at trying to sell the passes at the poll itself. We're working on ways to do that, so.
I think we were also talking about possibly selling them online.
That's gonna be a little more difficult, the online one, but we're looking at different ways to purchase the passes.
And from what I understand, the printer that we thought we were gonna have to replace appears to be functional at this point. Or is it down again?
No, it's working.
Okay.
We got Christmas and Catherine did a great job. They got it working, and we can print the passes in the current system we have without having any new hardware. So.
Great.
And I think I think also with some of the stuff we're looking at with the new, the upcoming leases, that the equipment that's being proposed will be also able to print the passes. And we may not have to have a special printer at all.
Okay.
The printer we have now, it's up on Spartan, so if it's an added additional charge, we'll just mix that on the new system.
Awesome. All right.
I have a question. On the planning commission, did somebody resign or?
There's some vacancies where somebody didn't,
Yeah, there's a position that came open.
A position came open, did someone resign?
No, there wasn't a resignation, a term ended. And so- Right, so we took the opportunity to advertise.
A term, what do you mean a term ended? Somebody's
So-
time was up?
Correct.
They don't want to do it anymore?
So I spoke with the prior board member and asked if.
Who is that?
Ms. Lou Ryan.
She's not gonna serve anymore?
She
Doesn't wanna
she
serve?
will if there is nobody else that would like to have the opportunity, but she said that she would like to see somebody else step up and serve by.
She doesn't want, so she doesn't want to do it.
It's not that she doesn't appreciate being able to, or not want, it's more she's wanting to see other people have the opportunity to participate.
We did have that whole issue with the library board being self-replicating. This is, I think, a case of we wanting to make sure that more community members get involved.
Yeah, so, and I applaud her for, wanting to bring more people from the community into the process.
Oh, so, okay, so she approached you with this?
I called her and I acknowledged that, I acknowledged that her term was up and I asked her what she wanted to do.
And she said she wanted someone else to step up?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. All right,
And I asked if it was okay, so that's where we are. And that's why we advertised it, a couple meetings ago.
okay.
Thanks. Moving on to additional citizen comments. Mr. Griner, thank you, sorry.
Do I need to introduce myself again?
No, okay, thank you.
I'm really excited about the idea of the new technological aspects of being able to, for the calendar for you guys and everything, because I think that will definitely help things. What I would like to see is the possibility to, like, for example, I'm on Facebook, so if there's a crime watch type thing, boom, it pops up on my phone. Is there a way to put that, the plan, the different meetings and everything to where, community members can
Yeah.
log in or however you
So
would set it
from
up?
a crime watch standpoint, or the emergency services standpoint, police, fire, those types of categories, the software that you need to subscribe to is Nixle. That will provide the emergency type communications.
Right.
With regards to like community happenings,
Yeah.
all that would be Savvy Citizen.
Right, but I'm saying, is there a way that beyond the different boards and everything, that we can be a
Yes.
part of that, or did I miss that when you were
So
presenting?
if you were, like, let's say, an organization.
No, say I'm not an organization, I'm just a citizen.
You're asking if you could
As a
access the
bit-
system and put
Yes.
some alerts in the
No,
morning?
where I would get an alert, hey,
Yes.
there's a council meeting, or hey. So-
Yes, exactly, so let me explain how this works. So download the application, Savvy Citizen, in
Okay.
your app store, iOS or
Alright.
Android. Alright, select the communities that you wanna follow,
Okay,
and select the groups
right,
that you wanna be part of in those communities,
okay.
and then you're gonna get notifications.
Oh, cool, okay.
Right.
So I didn't know if I missed that when you were presenting it, or,
No, and part of it is, there's an online part where there's a interactive portal where you're gonna go on and see the calendar of events, and it's just like opening up Outlook and seeing all the different,
Right.
agenda items or calendar items you have, and this is gonna work very similarly. However, it's gonna have the interface for you to elect into different notifications for different groups.
Gotcha. Yeah, if you're not somebody that, no offense to the library board or anybody that's here, but if the library isn't your thing, you don't have to subscribe to it.
Yes.
But if you wanna be part of the Crafton Celebrates community, then you can just subscribe to that part of it.
Yes,
So
yeah, this is
sounds
to
a lot
address that.
like Twitter, self-contained, this would be like more of a self-contained type of thing. Where just
Right, you're electing, just like in Nixle,
Right.
electing into it. But this way, once you say, hey, I live in Crafton and I wanna follow the library, I wanna follow the planning commission, I wanna follow the rec board, et cetera.
Anybody sometimes
Right.
put something in there, boom, I'm gonna get an alert.
Correct. Yep,
Very cool.
let's say like if the volunteer fire department, since the way it's worded is that, since they are receiving funds, say, Night at the Races
Right.
is something that they could come in and.
You're just not relying on it now to see it on the billboard, or
Yes.
actually having to go on
Yeah,
to
so we've been
Crafton's
listening.
website or
We've been
whatever.
listening because that's what, was part of the comp plan that we're missing this component. So the initial, application is going to facilitate the safety component, but this is gonna really,
Right.
focus on community engagement and getting everybody on the same page with what's going on with our different boards. Like, Brad, Kraus and I attended the Carlton School District, board meeting last week, and we found out that, we weren't plugged in, that there was a Taste of Carlton was going on, and that other, councils were being.
Nobody else is plugged into it too. either.
Yeah,
So they need to put the system in place
That's
that
not-
you're getting ready to do.
That's not entirely true, because the other stakeholders from the other parts of Roslyn Farms and Carnegie were, like, where you guys been all our lives?
Right.
So, it'd be
That's
nice to be
there's
able to-
definite disconnect.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So-
you'll get an alert that school is canceled or a 2-hour delay, but you don't get an alert that there's a bonfire supporting the prom committee,
Correct.
And
So in order, we're volunteering our system to them, to incorporate them. Obviously, we're not going to say Green Tree, you can advertise all your stuff in all your groups. We have to put, a harness
are
on
they receptive to that?
the Carlton
Yeah.
folks. I did make mention of it, and they seemed receptive to it. But, they
What
would,
do you need to make that happen?
more community, more.
No, on their end, support-wise.
They would need to have a vote to support this.
All right, well, I'm gonna take that ball and roll with it, because it's one of my biggest complaints as far as our school district goes, is there's no communication.
Yeah, so I think council's intent is to bring more cohesion and get people tied in that want to be tied in.
Right.
So that we're not gonna force you to
Right,
download
sure.
the application or force you to go to the website.
Right.
But once you do and you participate, just like,
Right.
nobody makes you open up Facebook, right?
Right,
So,
exactly.
yeah, so we're moving forward into the 21st century on
No,
this.
I like it, I like it.
Thank you.
I know it's only supposed to be 3 minutes.
Yes.
Wanted to comment on the fire department. I think you definitely, when you guys are working with Mike and Mr. Morgan and everything, make sure, I think we should definitely include 3 units or more, or even duplexes and more, this whole fire concept. We have so many buildings in Crafton that, I don't want to call them fire traps, but as you said, there are 100-year-old buildings that were converted in the, 60s and 70s into 3 units. I don't want to say illegally, but, the codes have changed in the last 50 years, and they're definitely not, I know you can't go backwards, because a lot of the stuff's grandfathered, but to make sure that it's as safe as it can be. I think, definitely I would hammer on that,
I think to interrupt you, it's been abundantly clear with our adjacent, or neighboring communities that, this fires have a really detrimental impact on, human health, safety, the community, and, we can't force individuals to take on insurance, but we can definitely make sure that there's enough fire prevention in the
Right.
community.
Right. And Mr. Kazrowski, I know you're only an interim borough manager, but you seem like you have a good thumb on these things. I think it would be nice to possibly look into if there's any type of discounts or grant monies or anything out there for business owners to get these Knox boxes that they're talking about, because they are very expensive. I've had to install them over the years with developments I've done here. And
Mike grants are a great source for grant money, especially fire.
I'll talk to them.
Fire related, no, I'll work with them too, but for fire
I
related
mean,
things.
they're $1,000. I mean,
We
and
just
you
bought
have business owners, people just getting started, like Needed Tranquility or the new little store right beside Dance Time, for them to have to go out and put $1,000 out to, be able to put a key into it, it's,
The thing about that is, you say, they're renters.
Right, well, but then you have someone like the Impavidos, who, they're not wealthy people, then now they have to have, they have to go out and get Knox boxes and things like that. So I just think if there was some way, we don't have that big of a commercial district.
Well, there's other ways to facilitate this, and maybe we consider like a tip, like some kind of tax incentive to help subsidize this for the
Yeah,
first
it's
year.
just an idea,
And
a
we have to
way
figure out
to
what that would
get
cost.
everybody, and make it, a community thing more than it is just, hey, you gotta do this. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Because, people get a little, freaked out whenever that comes around, and now they're gonna be charged for inspections and so on and so on. People get a little crazy. And one last thing, I wanted to throw this out there, I've been wanting to throw this out for a couple of years. I'm the booster president for, Little Cougar, for high school football team. And there's different organizations I've been involved in, and there's been talks about, over the years, about possibly having a beer garden at the Crafton Celebrates. It used to be talked about doing it where the community garden is, which obviously you can't do that now. But, maybe in discussions over time, if it was, handled properly with, proper ID scanners and things like that, there's a lot of people, you might be able to get more adults to come down versus it just being teenage kids. Marcia's been here a long time, Fred's been here a long time, but, Crafton Celebrates used to be really something. And, it'd be a good moneymaker for an organization like ours, but also it may, just because you're having a beer garden doesn't mean that you're gonna have people coming down there, drinking and stumbling drunk. Just, they might come down and have a beer and have a hot sausage sandwich or whatever, and try to get more adults involved in coming down. So I just wanted to throw that out there, for you guys to talk about, see if there's,
So Matt,
any possibility of doing it.
would you be thinking about doing it the entire time?
No, I think you could,
Like have a day or two?
well, you figure, you only have, you could try it maybe 1 or 2 days to start out with and see how it went, see if there was comfortability. You could require a police officer
Well,
to, or
I've
So-
actually just been
constable,
talking to the chief a little bit about
you know.
this because.
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, I did attend the Crafton Celebrates meeting. I look forward to having more discussion with Angela, the president of Crafton Celebrates, on it. I think it's prudent that council interact with them and establish policies and procedures. I don't know if we have enough time this year for it. And we just really need to look at the cost and benefit of them and what our risks and liabilities are.
Sure, but I think the person would have to have
You're
some type of.
basically, you're basically saying your organization, the boosters would be interested in it.
Yes, yes.
And I think,
And Angela has sent, we've been, she sent me an email, would we be interested in doing some kind of booth this year down there? And, it's a thought that I've had for, several years now and, might be, beneficial to all parties if it was handled properly.
Right.
It has to be handled properly.
And that's, what I want to tell the community, we have to do it properly. From my understanding, there's also discussion about possibly not having ticket booths and having, going to a cash basis, and therefore, the policy has to be right, and I'm going to invite Crafton's Angela back to speak to council about their position, so council can make a vote on it and go to vote, because, a manager or council president can't unilaterally make that decision.
Right. I just wanted to throw it out there
Yes.
as an idea. It's been
Well,
talked about,
Yes.
under the radar for many years and, just want to throw it out there.
Yes.
So I'm
Thank
gonna
you
check
so
with the
much.
LCB too and see what kind of,
That's right.
hoops I'd have to jump through on that
Right.
side of it too.
Yes.
Because you have to have some kind of permit from them to be able
yes,
to do it.
you do, because we did a small one with the Oktoberfest at the library.
Right.
So, there are some people who just did it last year and worked with the council, so.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Marcia?
The banners. Kelly Rolo approached me about the banner that she bought, and it never went up.
When did it come in? We have some that still go up, but most of the ones that came out, they've been coming in on a regular basis. There's still numbers that have to go up. Obviously, we started putting them up again when we had an opportunity. We'll go back to doing that again once it gets weather. We were fighting snow up until 2 weeks ago.
This is before Labor Day, she bought it. And they said they're getting ready to.
We didn't
come
put
down.
anything up after Labor Day. The thought was to take them down Veterans Day.
I said they told her they were coming down, they were putting it up, and then they never came down. She goes,
We got like 12 that have to go up right now. there's still people coming in order. We're running out of poles, they're probably gonna be on Woodlawn. I'm gonna be on Woodlawn Street putting the next group up. Maybe Union, I mean, all the main corridors are filled. So, I go about 12, have to go up. You'll see me on up very short.
In 96 Noble, I see are we getting anywhere with that?
No.
Can we do something with the bait for the rats and stuff that?
We could do that, sure.
It's bad over there.
Speaking of which, 1508,
That's posted very
Yeah,
good.
it's posted for them. No appeal has been received as of now.
How many days are we into that appeal process?
I think there's probably another few days to go.
Or it should be coming up on 20?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep.
Just one more thing, I read the, not just about the senior dinner. I asked you in the office, but you want to talk about it on the senior dinner one?
We've got the pension next.
okay.
And so the work you did on 96 Noble.
So we're just waiting, because Jordan was prepared to file, I think, a lien, et cetera. They thought it would get settled, like it usually happens. So that date is coming up, I think, at the end of, or middle of next month. So I'll check back in with Jordan, see if there's any update there.
They said someone said the floor is falling in now in the basement, so that's like, the rat problem. So.
Yeah, I mean, if there are those kinds of issues, then we may be able to take action on it.
And the trees on Crafton Boulevard, who trimmed them and?
State.
Utilities.
That was a state authorized tree pruner to come in and do a clear cut removal of anything along the park. You go up, they did the whole, we discussed the paving program that the state's doing along from the west end, Nobletown Road. If you take a ride on Crafton Boulevard where it turns into Nobletown Road and the west end, you'll see that's all clear cut. If you go up Nobletown Road towards Poplar in the Noble Manor Shopping Center, that's all clear cut. That was the state that authorized that and had the work approved into
I thought
the.
usually, someone in town usually helped or overseeing that.
Actually, they didn't ever inform us. One of the meetings we brought up with the state that I mean, I come in seeing them cutting trees, I pulled out my truck, who you guys working for? I mean, nobody knew any administrative offices. I didn't know, there was no permits filed, it was a state road. I just want to say, who you guys working for? The police weren't notified, it was a state highway, so the state supersedes, I guess, the municipality. I think there was letters of apology or email sent to the manager's office, about the miscommunication. There was, I think, 1 or 2 complaints about trees, and then we remediated to DMDC's office. He actually got involved and was remediated with the state property owner, Crafton Boulevard in Densmore.
But, yeah, miles, there you go.
Looks like a hurricane.
It is.
They cut trees down from the side where there weren't any
Yeah,
wires.
that's what.
Oh, it wasn't wires. I asked why they did that, what was the purpose of this, and they said that it was to permit the sunlight and light into the parkway for the street. Yeah, we had a lot of complaints.
How come this is off here?
It's-
I'm gonna,
It's 5 after 9. Let's get out of here.
all right, motion to adjourn,
Nice sound.
second, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.